2 of our Subaru Forester build series, nicknamed DaddyWagon. Last time we baseline and talked about the build that was done about 8 years ago, and now we've got a lot of new parts. We're excited to unbox them and put them on, hopefully teach you a thing or two about building a Subaru.
Oh, wow, that's a huge intake. What's up with that?
At least there's no restriction.
Yeah, I would hope not.
You don't need a 7-inch intake filter for your 2.5 liter Subaru.
I mean, I think the filter's bigger than the motor. It's a hat. Look at that. Thing's huge. All right, so we have our parts for this Forester here. We got 2 fuel pumps, big boys. Yeah. We have a radium fuel hanger we're gonna install to fix some things up.
Get rid of that radium surge tank.
Oh yeah. Then we got the beautiful R3 Haltech.
All right, Dalton, all I want to know, do you put the big pump as the primary pump or the big pump as the secondary pump?
Primary. I don't know. I just put them in.
Womp, womp, womp. So while Dalton finishes up wiring up our fuel level sensor, we're gonna go open up all of our ETS parts. Did you see this? It's like we had a friend living in our rear seat.
It's cozy in here though.
It's like a perfect circle. It's better than a hole saw. You must have loved that smell, E85.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we've got our turbo kit off the Forester, our old turbo kit. It was a custom turbo kit with 3-bolt up pipe. Originally part of board Warner 7163 when I first built it, and it was an awesome fast response turbo, but it kind of died out up top when we were pushing 30-some pounds of boost. But it did overboost one time, made 630 pounds of torque, but I never let it do that again. We upgraded to this Garrett GTX 3076 Gen 2. The car made right at 590 something horsepower on that turbo. And then now we're upgrading to a Garrett 3582. So same exhaust housing, 0.83 AR exhaust. 3076 has a 2-inch outlet, and the 3582 has a 2.5. So we're gonna have to redo our intercooler pipe. Also some other cool, interesting size comparisons. So this is our old up pipe. Which had a V-band turbo connection, 40 millimeter wastegate, and the inlets, the inner diameter on it is actually only 2 inches. And now we're upgrading to the ETS, which is right at almost 2.5, to tad bit less than 2.5. The Tomei header that was on it actually had a 2.25 outlet, so it went from 2.25 back down to 2-inch into the turbo. So the ETS kit definitely has a higher flow capacity, being 2.5 basically all the way through. Really nice header. This is their max flow V2 header, all V-band connection. And yeah, I don't think we'll have any exhaust restriction now. And we have this nice 7-inch. You know, never have any intake restriction either. The ETS also hooked us up with a 4-inch intercooler system. We're upgrading from this Vibrant. This is basically they rated it. They don't have the horsepower ratings on their website anymore, but it used to be rated at like 500 or 550, but it was heat soaking pretty bad. You can see there's quite a bit of difference there. So this car, with just having S1 cams and unported heads, you know, it's kind of, the heads are kind of undersized flow wise for this turbo kit, but you know, eventually that motor is going to go. We're going to do a better setup. So now we'll have everything set up for it on the turbo kit side to make lots of power. Yeah, I mean, it's like really cool to update all this stuff. Modify a car that you've already built. But sometimes when you get into the rebuilding of the build you've already built, like, man, this is a lot of snowball effect. A lot of time, a lot of money. Really worth it. Let me tell you a story. about a parable that Jesus taught that really has always stuck out to me. Someone comes to Jesus from the crowd and says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with him." He says to the guy, "Man, who appointed me as a judge over you?" He said to the crowd, "Watch out and be on your guard against every form of greed. For not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions." So he tells one parable, which is basically just an earthly story to teach a spiritual or heavenly meaning. It says, "The land of a rich man was very productive. This rich man began to say, 'What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. This is what I will do. I will tear down all the barns that I already have and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grains and things. And I will say to my soul, you have many goods laid up for years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry.'" This man is caught up in building his own kingdom. He already has a lot, and yet he thinks, instead of being content with what he has, he says, "I'm going to tear this all down and just build him bigger." But yet, verse 20 says, "God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your soul is required of you. And now who will own what you have prepared?' So this is just like the one who stores up for himself treasure on earth and is not rich." So we're not talking about someone who doesn't have much, who's struggling to get by. This is someone who would probably describe most people watching our YouTube channel and most of our customers who, pretty well off as far as worldly standards go compared to third world countries. And we've got extra money to spare. It's not like I need this to get from point A to point B. But it's wants. It's want-based business. So when you build a car, it's not you need to build a race car. It's I want to build a race car. So somewhere to us in this passage, someone who has a lot and he says, well, it's not enough. I'm not content with it. I need to expand. I need to have more. And that's really what greed is, a desire for more. In Proverbs 30, it says, "I've asked of you, Lord, give me neither riches nor give me poverty, but feed me with my daily bread, that is my portion, so that I'm not full and I deny you and forget about you. Say, who is Yahweh? Or that I be poor and be impoverished and steal and profane the name of God." He says, let me be content in the middle. Whatever the Lord gives me, whether it's a lot, whether it's a little, I'm content. Contentment is really one of the most difficult things, especially in America, because we're constantly being told by billion-dollar ad campaigns that you need something else. Don't be happy with just what you have. You need this. That'll make you happy. You need this vacation. You need to go experience this. You need to add this to your life. You need the newest phone. You need the newest turbo. You need. This will make you happy. And yet, there's some people that I know that have less than most, and they're some of the most content, happy people I've ever met because they have Christ. And Paul says in Philippians 4 that I've learned the secret of it. It really is a secret. Something that's completely foreign to our American culture. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that's learned. So by God's grace, I have not arrived. But just in like doing this Forester build, it's that learning of, wow, like we got really excited about doing all these parts and doing this build. And then you get into it and you're like, wow, okay, now I need to spend another $200 here to get this. And spend another. And obviously our goal in making these videos is to build cool cars to preach the gospel. But at what point does it become, okay, now we didn't spend $40,000. We spent $40,000 to get 40 views on YouTube. At what point does the scales kind of unbalance and you're like, okay, you really just spent this money on yourself. And you're not going to get it back out. In my mind, I typically can justify investing a little bit of money if I can then sell the car for more later on, or it's going to increase its value. But sometimes in these performance builds, you spend so much money and you're never going to get the value back out of it. And for me, it really, as I'm learning to be content, it really makes it difficult in trying to discern if it's wise to do. It's being a good steward of what the Lord's blessed me with. So something that I think is very applicable to us is the balance of realizing that it's not necessarily sinful to spend money on a car, but it can be sinful if that becomes your God and you're trying to find all your satisfaction out of that. And ultimately, if you look at the history of sinful humanity, that's our problem. That sin promises this will make you happy. Yeah, that's what Satan promised Eve. You will be like God. This will look good. It was delightful to her eyes. And I think that's a lot of times what our idols tell us. This will make you happy. This will be good. This will bring you joy. And then it might for a few days. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I got to pay my credit card bill. And for me, we painted my Forester. And then really the first time I'd ever done that much work painting this car, all this hours of time invested. 2 weeks later, our pop-up tent blew into it and scratched it. Well, it's supposed to be this awesome paint job. It's already messed up, but it just reminds you of the futility of trying to build up treasures on earth that are all going to burn and rust away. Because the Bible promises everything on this earth is passing. God's creating a new heavens and a new earth for his people. So that's the ultimate, I think the ultimate difference between Christian and a non-Christian is that the Christian isn't perfect, but we realize that ultimate joy and satisfaction is found in Christ. And I'm just an alien and stranger here. That in His presence is fullness of joy, and at His right hand are pleasures forever. So I can enjoy things that God gives us on this life. God gives us lots of things to enjoy, but they can very easily become, good things can very easily become God, where this is, I'm stringing at this to try to get all of the satisfaction out of it when it's not meant to satisfy me. And that's the point. All things that God created are originally were good, and yet He wants us to find our joy and satisfaction in Him. And so for the true Christian who's realized that they're a wretched sinner before God and that they need a Savior, when Jesus saves us, we realize that He becomes the bread of life. You can eat physical bread every day and never be satisfied, but He offers eternal bread that will satisfy your soul. An eternal living water, that which if you drink of, you will thirst no more. He offers eternal satisfaction, not only in this life, but also in eternity. And if we're honest, all of our hearts and souls, whether it's cars or marriage, relationships, fame, we're all trying to find satisfaction and joy and identity in these things. Only Jesus Christ can save us from them and teach us how to be content.
What are you doing to this beautiful customer's car?
Do you want to go fast?
Is it weight reduction if you just bend it?
Aerodynamics in the car.
So the fuel vapors get in the cabin quicker. So you can kind of tell this bottom portion is factory Forester part, and they basically mold the gauge pot on top of it. And you can see, you know, over here there's a decent kind of crack. You can see this has been on the car for a while, but you can see the glue inside there. But when we were pulling it off to put the Haltech can gauge in, we noticed basically all of the mounting points where the screws go were broke and cracked, and this isn't like a super easy part to get or anything. And so it had these holes. We basically enlarged the holes and then drilled out the factory mounting points, and we're just going to put some M6 bolts and nuts, but we had to enlarge these holes to be able to get your finger in there to hold it, because the way they make it, the holes is only, you know, just big enough for your gauge wires to go through. So something else that takes time on a big project. And now with our holes, we got some bolts in there, and it's all tight again. Well, as tight as the factory will let it be. So we're going to put our Haltech Ken keypad right in here, and hopefully my friend Garrison will 3D print us a bracket. So nice little spot. We've got most of the wiring ran, although it's still, you know, here's the USB cord, got our power and ground, and we got to put our pressure sensor wires into a DTM connector, and then we'll tidy it up, and it should look nice. All right, so we've got our Haltech pen out here. Basically went ahead and wrote down what we've got each sensor input connected to, and now we got to put our flex fuel input. We're going to add oil pressure, and we're also going to add another pressure sensor that we're going to use on the meth line, basically to ensure that meth is spraying into the engine. We have proper meth flow before the ECU adds timing and leans out the air-fuel ratio. That way we don't have a lean condition or anything that could hurt the motor. So we're going to wire in this DTM6 connector right here. It'll have a 5-volt reference, a sensor ground, a 12-volt reference, and then our 3 inputs for our sensors.
So, very easy to remove the pan on this one. You got to be very careful to not scratch up the surfaces. That way it won't leak. But it looked like it did have a pickup on it. Looks like a Killer Bee pickup. And a baffle plate. Look at that. So, we're still going to put a IAG pan on it. Alright, so, just for fun. Get the filter open just to see. And it's just a small section, but I mean, it doesn't look bad at all. I don't see any really metallic material or anything in there. So I think we're gonna run this puppy. So we have our IAG oil pan. Baffle, pickup tube, all installed on Forester. Looks great. Very, very, very nice.
Power and ground wires. Got our AOS moved. Got the turbo all set up. So gotta move a few hoses here and there, but pretty much everything's set up, ready to go. Got some heat shielding on the air conditioning lines and the other fluid lines. Got our new IAG coolant overflow tank.
What you got there?
Waiting on our sensors. We use these fantastic Honeywell. They're tiny and they work great. We're going to put a pressure sensor right here in the methanol line, basically to act as a fail-safe to make sure we have meth flowing into the intercooler pipe before the ECU adjusts boost, timing, and fuel. So basically, methanol adds octane and adds fuel, and if you're running the tune more aggressive for it and it's not actually flowing, you're going to cause engine damage. So this is to protect that. And so the Haltech, we've got a cool little custom feature wired up.
So what are you doing now?
So it's Friday, I'm ready to go home.
One, two, three, go!
If you have any questions about today's content or Bible study, please reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook, Wretched Racing. You can email us at wretchedracing@gmail.com. If you'd like a Bible or any kind of gospel material, we would love to send it to you for free. We also have t-shirts and hoodies. Thanks for watching.